You don't know me, I don't know you, but one thing you need to know about me is I love Megamind. And I mean, I love Megamind. This is my favorite movie of all time and like my most watched movie ever. I don't know the exact number, but I've seen it over 80 times at least. I didn't even need to rewatch it for the sake of this video because at this point I could watch the whole thing with my eyes closed from start to finish. It's that bad, but I rewatched it anyways because why not? I love this movie. When the sequel was first announced 2 years ago, I think, yeah, 2 years, I had 20 different people call and message me to let me know about it because I am annoying and don't let anybody in my life forget that I love Megamind. When I saw it was announced to be a show, I was a bit skeptical, but I had some hope because I'm familiar with some of DreamWorks TV's projects. The Tales of Arcadia series, we don't talk about the movie, and Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous are prime examples of really good DreamWorks TV shows, and I had hoped like we'd get a similar quality here. Unfortunately, when the trailer for the sequel dropped, I realized that we were getting the lower quality side of DreamWorks TV. Honestly, that trailer was so bad, I cried. Because imagine waiting 14 years for something that you wanted so badly that you spend high school avoiding homework to write your own script about a sequel. And then you actually get the sequel and it looks like this.
DJ, put another stanky groove in my pocket.
However, I do have to say the timing of this worked out because for a very long time, I've wanted to start a YouTube channel and make a video talking about different kinds of subjects I have lined up. But Megamind is the one topic that I can talk about for hours. I've written countless school essays on it, everything. So this was the perfect chance for me to make a video. I even got lightning bolt earrings to rep Megamind today. I would wear blue, but as you can see, I'm all pink. Always, all times. I've seen lots of people make videos on their thoughts of the TV movie, but not so much on the show. And unfortunately, I'm here to say I've seen both in their entirety. Seriously, I've seen this show over 4 times to make this video, and I'm in pain. It was hard. It was torture. Not only do I want this to be a review recap of the TV movie and the show, I want to also analyze it a little bit, delve in deeper into the connections to the initial movie and things like that. I don't know how this video is going to turn out. This is my first video after all, but if this video works out, I would really like to make a follow-up video rewriting this entire show from scratch because honestly, I think there's a few details that could be fleshed out and built up upon to make something good. Before we get into the new content, I want to take a brief step back and look into the original movie to try to see what makes it so special and why it's still relevant today, 14 years later, to the point where it gets its own series. This isn't going to be a full analysis of the original movie because trust me, if I got a chance to do that, this video would be over 4 hours long. Nor is it going to be a summary. So if you haven't seen the original movie, I suggest you go back, watch it in its entirety, and then come back here. At its core, Megamind is meant to be a parody of the superhero genre pre-2010, taking the usual tropes and twisting them a little bit. Despite a pretty basic premise, the plot is extremely complex, as we find Megamind isn't a regular supervillain who loves to do evil for the sake of doing evil, but rather he was forced into this as a child and feels that it's the only thing he has in his life, so he clings to it. Embracing the side of evil, he grew to love his battles with Metro Man for the performance sake of it all. So when he finally defeats Metro Man, he loses the kind of purpose that he's found in his life. As a result, he creates his own new hero to kind of fill the void that Metro Man left. From there, we see how the actions he takes to fill his void affect people around him more personally than the threats he's usually caused, and how that snowballs into the biggest threat that Metro City has ever faced. The dynamics of these characters is what makes this movie stand out because they feel real. The emotional stakes of each character's actions are treated as the most important, while the external conflicts come second. The cause and effect goes like this. Metro Man felt like he was going through the motions of battle after battle with Megamind, so he retired. Megamind feels empty, so he makes a hero to fill the void. Roxanne fears what her city might become, so she tries to stop Megamind herself. Megamind feels seen when he's Bernard, so he spends more time as him with Roxanne. Hal feels being a hero isn't worth it if Roxanne isn't into him, so he becomes a villain. Minion feels lost without the path society chose for him in Megamind, so he leaves Megamind when he deviates from that path. Roxanne feels betrayed because the one normal thing in her life turned out to be a lie, and Megamind is lost because the only normal thing in his life walked out. Each major plot point has a character's emotion behind it. The emphasis on the character's emotions to move the story along rather than some external force is what made the story stand out in the first place. They made sure the audience understood their characters in a way that not many movies allow, and they took each character seriously rather than playing up on the comedy of what is supposed to be a parody. Keeping this in mind is what makes getting into what DreamWorks calls a sequel interesting. I'm sure you could tell I was not excited to watch any of this, and after spending over 11 hours watching and rewatching all of this, I was right not to be. Yes, it was torture, but I have my master's degree at the University of Megamind, so I will do anything to make sure this is as thorough as possible. Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate is a straight-to-streaming TV film with a runtime of 1 hour and 25 minutes. But you could have told me it was a runtime of 3 hours and I would have believed you, because that's how long this drags on. After watching every single minute of it, I can safely say that this is just pure garbage. I found some joy within my first watch, but then for my second, I rewatched the original movie and it was jarring. What was once tolerable because I didn't have a refresher on the source material became nails on a chalkboard. I just couldn't do it anymore. Regardless, I still have many thoughts I'd like to discuss. The plot of this movie follows Megamind 2 days after the events of the first movie, as he adjusts to becoming the new hero of Metro City. Though it's odd that even though the first movie clearly takes place in 2010, where the most mainstream cell phone is a flip phone, that 2 days later, suddenly iPhones and social media exist. But I'll get more into that later. After Megamind receives the key to the city, Minion realizes that he wants to be more than just Megamind's servant, but his sidekick. When he mentions this to Megamind, they have a disagreement, and Minion and Megamind part ways. Minion starting a donut shop, and Megamind being a solo act. Another side note, Minion is no longer called Minion anymore because of the Illumination Minions. His new name is Old Chum.
Correction there. Due to a cease and desist order from popular fast food chain Mr. Minion's Meatsicles, I can no longer call myself Minion. So, Megamind gave me a new name. Old Chum. It means old friend.
And they call him that for the rest of all of this. I'm not doing that. He's Minion, and I'm calling him Minion. I'm not gonna let the Illumination Minions take this from me. He's Minion. If there was a plot reason for why his name was changed, sure, I'd call him whatever, but it's not. So his name is Minion, and I will be addressing him as such. Thank you. Almost instantly, Megamind is faced with a not-so-friendly reminder of his past when his old supervillain group, the Doom Syndicate, show up after getting wind of his transition to the good side. However, they believe Megamind crafted this as part of an evil plan to trick Metro City into believing he's a good guy so he can turn against them and rule the city once again. Megamind tries to use this to his advantage to keep up appearances in front of his former colleagues so he can keep them from following through with their plans to launch Metro City to the moon. When this plan backfires, the Doom Syndicate turns against him, and he convinces Minion to return as his sidekick. He also enlists Roxanne and new character Keiko Morita to defeat them. There's also a weird dance party scene and a lot of talk about pooping parakeets in there somewhere. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with the movie because I don't want to, but you will notice I go much more in depth with the show, episode by episode. That's for no particular reason, it just happened that way. Anyways, most of this movie involved me groaning very loudly and banging my head on the wall. It's a shock I'm still alive because this movie was so bad it should have killed me. It's hard to organize my thoughts in a way that makes sense, but I'll try to go in order as much as possible because this is messy. First, I'd like to address the voice acting. The key to filling the roles of characters that celebrities played is not doing a perfect impression of that celebrity, but becoming that character. And in some cases, I felt like that's what was happening. In other cases, I did not. The voice for Megamind clearly has effort, but it's just not right. I don't think Megamind can truly be Megamind without Will Ferrell because there's so much nuance he brings to that character that other people can't quite replicate. On the other hand, I felt like Roxanne really sounded like Roxanne, even when the writing sometimes didn't seem like her. Honestly, Roxanne is just the best part in this in general. Also, Minion is voiced by Josh Brenner, and as a huge Rise of the TMNT fan, it was awesome. I literally only heard Donnie speaking the entire show. And it's awesome how well Josh Brenner's voice fits Minion. There's so many times where I forget that Minion didn't always sound like that. Anyways, my biggest fear for this series was the new character Keiko Morita. I'm assuming she was only implemented because executives felt like the original movie only had adult characters and that they needed a kid character in there to be relatable to children. And though I still feel that way, I surprisingly didn't hate her like I thought I would. She's a kid who had a similar journey as Megamind, being someone who, because of the way they look, everyone assumed that they were bad. So she felt like she had to embrace what people pushed upon her. But after seeing what Megamind went through and how he became good, she decided to follow in his footsteps. I did appreciate them showing how Megamind's own journey impacted others. With hindsight into her role in the show, Keiko does add to the team's dynamic, but her inclusion within the movie is so forced that it's impossible to like her at this point. She's also introduced as a social media manager with 500,000 subscribers. I don't have to explain why that's bad. I mentioned this earlier, but how do we go from flip phones to iPhone 15s within 2 days? If the executives were so bent on Megamind becoming an influencer, which I don't understand why they would want that in the first place, when the original movie came out, iCarly, one of the first mainstream medias to cover influencers, was at its peak. Why not just make Megamind Carly Shay? Why are we messing with the timeline here for no reason? I know the answer, but it's so dumb, I just refuse to believe it. Back to Keiko. Unfortunately, while I appreciate elements of her as a character, her introduction is just messy. Almost instantly, she gains a connection with Roxanne that just doesn't make sense. If I, a grown woman, am interrupted by a middle schooler reading me to absolute filth, I'm walking the other way, not becoming besties with them. If she had some kind of prior connection to Roxanne, it would have made much more sense. Also, the idea of a child hanging out and taking car rides with adults they just met is really weird, especially when the adult is encouraging them being a stalker.
The fan club pin I gave him has a tracker in it.
That's pretty devious. You are his #1 fan.
One of the plotlines I mentioned earlier was Megamind and Minion parting ways. It's very much reused from the first movie, just without the nuance of it. We already get the conflict between them. Megamind telling Minion that he doesn't need him because Minion is coming in between his love for Roxanne, and that conflict was later resolved. It's just odd for it to happen again 2 days later. The only possible explanation I could think for this is they might have wanted to separate Minion from the rest of the plot, but they couldn't find a way to do so without rehashing this old plotline. I hate that. I hate that, and it's just lazy, uninspired writing. I'm sorry. There's also the Go Fish Gang, which I'm only mentioning now despite them being the first new characters we see, because I don't want to talk about them. Their designs are ugly. Every single line that comes out of their mouths are abysmal, and I just tune them out entirely for the sake of my mental health. Now, my favorite thing about all of this, the only time I genuinely got excited watching this, is Megamind and Roxanne's relationship. Y'all do not understand. Mega Rox was my very first ship before I even knew what shipping was. For 14 years, I have wanted to see them together, and while we don't quite get them here, it's for good reason. While they aren't actually together, their relationship is addressed as being complicated, which given the circumstances of the original movie works really well. Roxanne was hurt learning the truth about Bernard, and after a few days, it makes sense that she still needs time to accept that everything she had with Bernard was really with Megamind. It fits her character to not want to jump into anything. And with Megamind, these are entirely new emotions he's facing. He is not going to know how to navigate it unless Roxanne's open to doing so. Now, I will say I'm extremely biased on this front, so any romantic interaction between Megamind and Roxanne, I'm gonna eat up, no matter how good or bad. But without the rose-tinted glasses, it's not good. While the points I made a few moments ago still stand, it's clear their relationship is heavily watered down for no reason at all. And this is a trend you're gonna see throughout this entire video. Every positive I have to say about this show comes with an even bigger negative. But I will say I got excited to see Megamind call Roxanne his hero, and them referring to each other as husband and wife to keep up appearances in front of the Doom Syndicate.
I'm sorry, was I interrupting something?
My hero.
Speaking of which, let's get to the elephant in the room, the Doom Syndicate. The Doom Syndicate is the villain group that Megamind was the founding member of prior to the original movie. It's made up of a few members, Lady Doppler, Pierre Pressure, Lord Nighty Night, and Behemoth. Now, the Doom Syndicate was initially set to make an appearance in the original movie as a group that Megamind created to distract Metro Man. This was scrapped due to making the plot too convoluted, but they were reused in the Megamind tie-in game released alongside the movie. However, the initial Doom Syndicate members created for the original movie are not present here except for Lady Doppler and Behemoth, which I find disappointing because the original Doom Syndicate has a lot more appealing members than what we get here. Compared to other pre-existing characters in this franchise, there's not much with the Doom Syndicate. Each of these characters are lackluster and bland with no substance. I argue Lady Doppler has a small amount of depth to her, as she has a connection with Roxanne. They were former co-workers until an incident where Roxanne got her fired, and she's still bitter over it. Is this relationship explored? No. We get a few short lines in reference to it, that's about it. In contrast to the depth behind every character in the original movie, the Doom Syndicate is made up of villains who are evil for the sake of being evil, and any opportunity for nuance is completely abandoned. Lady Doppler became a villain because she lost her weather reporter job. Why does she want to send Metro City to the moon? Megamind was a villain because he felt he had to, and he loved the performance of fighting Metro Man. Titan was a villain because his only motivation to be a hero was squandered, and he had nothing else in his life going for him but powers that could get him anything that he wanted. What's the Doom Syndicate's excuse? We don't get a chance to understand these characters, and every single moment we get with them drags on because we don't even know who they are. It doesn't even feel like these are people Megamind would surround himself with. In addition to that, the designs are just ugly. Like, I get Lady Doppler is supposed to look like a weather reporter screen with green screen green gloves, but it's just tacky. Looking at the initial concept art for her from the original movie, it's a major downgrade. Then Pierre Pressure, just a basic mime villain, but he talks and his powers don't have anything to do with being a mime other than the fact that he's French. He could have easily just been a magician, get the same kind of appeal. Behemoth is just a basic looking lava monster, and Lord Nighty Night is the most generic scary night type. It's also mentioned that his name used to be Fright Night, and Fright Night is a Danny Phantom villain with an almost identical design. It's just all uninspired. With lackluster villains, the plot drags on. Honestly, everything is just forgettable because each action sequence is just basic camera angles, stiff panning shots, and plain special effects that immediately bore you. The movie isn't cinematic in any aspect and is just an elongated episode of the show. There's particularly one shot that comes to mind where Megamind sends a parakeet bot to save Minion, and it's just poorly executed. I understand that this is because this was made with the TV animation pipeline, but general audiences don't know that. They see DreamWorks movie and they think Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, not this. It's sad because I did like the basis of the plot, just not the plot itself. The idea of villains from Megamind's past and Megamind having to keep up evil appearances in order to keep them at bay is interesting, but they do nothing with it. At the very end of this movie, Roxanne is appointed mayor of Metro City. While I firmly believe that Roxanne as mayor is a really good narrative choice, she's literally made mayor instantly, with no time to actually think about it. I understand her arc throughout the movie is that she wants more in her life than just reporting, and that she wants to find new purpose. However, it's just not developed well at all. It just happens. But unfortunately, that's the main issue with storytelling in this. It happens purely for plot convenience sake. Don't even get me started on Megamind calling a toaster malfunction an emergency as a plot device to get Roxanne to the lair so she could meet the Doom Syndicate. Now, this movie ends off with the introduction of a character that claims to be the one that taught Megamind everything he knows, which already causes numerous continuity errors on top of the Doom Syndicate being a thing. But I won't go into that in depth just yet because the show Megamind Rules talks about it a little bit more, and it's just easier to talk about it there. Okay, that was rough. I've tried so hard to look and find positives here because I'm finally getting a franchise that I've loved for more than half my life back. But it just felt nearly impossible. I can't believe I've watched this over 4 times, but I will do whatever's necessary for Megamind, including watching and rewatching the show for the rest of this video. But before we get to that, I'd like to have a little palate cleanse and talk about the short film that not many people talk about, Megamind and the Button of Doom. It's a little 15-minute short that came out with the movie's DVD release. There's a few aspects of it that I think should have been fleshed out more in a proper sequel. The story follows Megamind and Minion hosting a garage sale at the lair in an attempt for Megamind to rid himself of all his evil creations. He tells Minion that he's moving forward by trying to be more like Metro Man, even changing his suit to all white and possessing technology to mimic Metro Man's abilities. When he accidentally activates an old evil invention of his, he learns that trying to be Metro Man only holds him back, and he's truly his best when he's himself. With the help of Minion, he's able to defeat his invention, fully embracing himself as a hero, and he even gets his own hero signal, something that the TV movie adapts into its story. There's also a little subplot where a bunch of kids that got his D-gun from the garage sale dehydrated all their parents, and Megamind comes in to get the gun back. Much to the children's dismay, he brings back all their parents. And it's nice to see how Megamind would actually interact with children, rather than what we see with him and Keiko in the show. The plot is short and sweet, but something that could be fleshed out to create a much more compelling story. It makes sense for Megamind to feel like he needs to be Metro Man to be a good hero. Unfortunately, we don't really get that in the TV movie or the show. I do want to note that while I've seen the original movie over 80 times, I've only seen the short film 5 times. And after watching it again, after subjecting myself to all this new stuff, it was a breath of fresh air. This is Megamind. Watching the final scene where Megamind and Minion react to getting their own signal and running off to go do their first hero patrol makes me sad, because this is truly the last time we ever see them.
Let's go patrol, heroically.
I miss them a lot, and it's sad that this series doesn't fill that void. I don't know if we'll ever see them again. But if we do, DreamWorks, please let me into that writer's room. I know Megamind, I can save it. I know what to do, and I will get the job done. Eris for Megamind 2, please. Eris-brenae for Megamind 2. Eris-brenae for Megamind 2. Come on, y'all. Eris-brenae for Megamind 2. Thank you. And now for the big one. Megamind Rules is an 8-episode TV series streaming on Peacock. Each episode runs for about 23 minutes, so we get about 4 hours of whatever this is.
Not my ears!
If you thought the movie was bad, it doesn't get much better here. While there are episodes I tolerated more than others, specifically ones that feature Roxanne, when this show is bad, it's bad. Like I was screaming into a pillow because I couldn't subject myself to any of this bad. The theme song is a song. Certainly not my taste, but not entirely a negative of the show. Although I can't say the same about the dancing animations in that intro. Also, nothing will ever touch the Megamind rap. And if you don't know what that is, let me introduce you to this masterpiece.
Are you ready to meet the baddest hero the world has ever seen?
Megamind! Hit it!
Megamind. Megamind.
Straight out of Metro City!
Megamind. He used to be a villain, just chilling and thrilling. Now he's like a cure, so just call him penicillin. Megamind, Mike. His friend is a space fish, talks like a this.
Who are you?
Megamind. Will Ferrell, Tina Fey, Jonah Hill, and Brad Pitt, baby.
That's right.
I make this look so good.
The first episode is titled Megamind vs. Dude Monkey. One thing I can say about this episode, not a strong start to your series, as if the TV movie wasn't already enough. The episode follows Megamind trying to adapt to his new life as hero, when a new hero known as Dude Monkey steps in and takes a spotlight. I almost instantly recognize Dude Monkey to be voiced by Max Middleman. He literally uses his Arataki Ito voice from Genshin Impact for this role, and it's jarring.
I stopped a crime! Say banana lemma ding dong!
Dude Monkey is interesting. First off, his design is just ugly. I hate looking at it so much, it makes me angry. He's also meant to represent dare YouTubers, I guess? Something like that, I don't know. Basically, this kicks off a whole social media battle between Megamind and Dude Monkey. Keiko, now being Megamind's social media manager, has to explain to him and Minion what the internet is. I swear I'm trying not to get upset right now covering this, but my god, this makes no sense in the slightest. I swear the writers forget Megamind is basically human. He spent his whole life on Earth, raised amongst humans. Sure, he was in prison, but he wasn't completely sheltered. Yes, he can be dumb, but he's only dumb when it comes to stuff that doesn't pertain to technology, engineering, or science. Why do we forget he's literally a super genius? He would know what the internet is and how it works. He would use the internet. There's also the fact that the original movie, again, takes place in 2010. All the old memes they address in this show were relevant at the time.
Look, this cartoon baby is dancing just like a grown-up.
That meme is older than my teacher. and she knits.
Whatever, I can't use logic here because it's clear the writers didn't. After Keiko explains the internet, or the internet as Megamind calls it, genuinely one of the only in-character things this entire episode, she helps him set up a channel so he can properly compete with the large number Dude Monkey's been getting on his videos. Megamind attempts to vlog his heroing, but when he saves a random civilian, Dude Monkey swoops in and steals the spotlight.
Say, Megamind's Choogie!
Still, Keiko decides to use the footage, admitting Dude Monkey's involvement, and posts it, but Megamind's views are basically non-existent. Meanwhile, Dude Monkey begins to skyrocket to fame, even replacing Megamind in heroic public appearances like the aquarium grand reopening. As a response, Megamind attempts to replicate the style of Dude Monkey, but acting more Gen Z, whatever that means.
Cry much, am I right?
Seeing Megamind with a giant snapback hat fit to his head hurt me. I'm hurt. As a villain who expresses to care so much about presentation, he would never stoop this low. Regardless, he fails miserably to stop crimes this way and just gives up entirely. However, after Keiko compiles all the footage together on a computer, Megamind mistakes the upload button for the trash button and posts all the embarrassing moments online. Surprisingly, this is met with positive feedback from fans, saying they appreciate seeing their hero mess up because it makes them feel better about when they mess up. I don't know, man. I didn't write this mess. Anyways, somewhere in there, they catch footage of Megamind trying to stop Lord Nighty Night. In this footage, Nighty Night admits he's going to steal the diamond-encrusted koi fish from the aquarium ceremony that Dude Monkey will be at. After being alerted of these plans, they call Roxanne, who is at the ceremony, and she begins to make an attempt to stop Lord Nighty Night. She also makes a comment about how she would rather be hit by a comet than having to listen to Dude Monkey's speech, which unfortunately, that's going to be important later. Remember that. Dude Monkey attempts to stop him as well, thinking Lord Nighty Night is just one of his friends acting like a villain, before realizing it's the real deal, and he admits that he's faked all of his crime stopping. Megamind enters in enough time to catch Dude Monkey's confession on camera and properly stops Lord Nighty Night. This episode proceeds to end with lines I wish I never heard associated with the Megamind character.
Really need you to like and subscribe.
Sir, I made my own meme.
Pretty chill, homeboy.
I think you've gone viral, sir.
And a reveal that Lord Nighty Night was actually after a starfish instead of the koi fish and delivers it to Machiavellian. Machiavellian is the villain that was introduced at the end of the TV movie who taught Megamind everything he knew. He knows, whatever. 4 times. I watched that episode 4 times to properly write this. As I was writing the script, I kept forgetting details from this episode because it just wasn't that good, which resulted in me going back to it over and over and over again. And unfortunately, I did that with every episode after this. I'm ready to move on though. Next up is episode 2, the villainous origin of Mr. Donut. This is it, guys. This is the worst episode. While this is not saying much, the show doesn't get much worse than this. The plot of this follows Mr. Donut, the owner of the donut shop Minion worked at in the TV movie, as he invites Megamind and Roxanne to tour the kitchen. He makes Megamind-shaped donuts as appreciation for his hero work, and Megamind is instantly tempted to eat them. However, Megamind's dreams of eating his face as soon as possible are crushed when Mr. Donut tells him that he doesn't allow eating in his kitchen. Megamind doesn't listen, and as Roxanne attempts to stop him from eating in the kitchen, their squabble results in a squirt of jelly from the donut to land in front of Mr. Donut, causing him to slip and then fall into a giant vat of his sticky glaze. I hated saying that, but that's what they call it, guys. Again, I didn't write this. Roxanne calls an ambulance and Mr. Donut is taken to the hospital, but before he is, he whispers, "I'll pay you back for this." And Megamind takes that as a threat. He begins to panic, believing that he accidentally gave Mr. Donut his own villain origin story. Whoa! Who could have guessed that? I sure couldn't. The title doesn't say anything. Roxanne insists that Megamind is overreacting, but Minion and Keiko both side with Megamind over the matter. Megamind declares he's going to be the ultimate hero by stopping a villain before they even become one and brings Minion along with him. Meanwhile, Roxanne makes a bet with Keiko that they can look together for clues of Mr. Donut's villainy, and whoever's right buys the other donuts. I want to point out that this is a grown woman in her 30s making a bet with a 12-year-old to buy the other donuts. Like if Keiko loses, Roxanne is going to expect this 12-year-old to buy her donuts. This is not a normal adult minor interaction, let alone the mayor and a middle schooler. Why they insist on making this dynamic so weird is beyond me. As Megamind and Minion catch up with Mr. Donut, he's still covered in sticky glaze as it's too sticky for the doctors to remove, despite the fact that Megamind and Roxanne were knee deep in it earlier and they aren't affected. The heating element used for this glaze is now broken, and without it, Mr. Donut is unable to continue serving donuts. As a solution, Megamind attaches a laser gauntlet to Mr. Donut's arm to heat it up manually, but the glaze is so sticky that the gauntlet can't be removed after its use. You know, just a normal Tuesday. Mr. Donut begins to panic as he has an appointment at the bank he can't be late to, and Megamind insists that he go to his appointment and that he and Minion will figure something out before he gets back. However, moments later, it's on the news that a villain named Dr. Glazer Donut is robbing the bank. Megamind and Minion rush to the scene, believing that their predictions have come true, but that's not the truth. Mr. Donut had been trying to carry through with his appointment, but his new laser arm had been going off nonstop and accidentally causing damage. Megamind and Minion try to stop it, but it eventually causes debris to fall on Mr. Donut's head, knocking him out and giving him amnesia. To protect him, Megamind takes Mr. Donut to one of his old hideouts, much to Roxanne's annoyance, unknowing that the Go Fish has taken it over. Guess you guys can imagine how excited I am to see the Go Fish gang again. I love the Go Fish gang. I love them so much. In fact, I love them so much, I made them a little edit. Check it out. I don't even remember if the Go Fish gang come back or not. I blacked out so much of the show, but if they come back, I'm going to start crying on camera. After Mr. Donut is left alone in the lair, the Go Fish gang confronts him and confesses that they're huge fans of his work, despite the fact that he's only been known as a villain for a day. The Go Fish gang elects him as their new leader, and because he has amnesia, he truly believes he's actually a villain. Meanwhile, Roxanne and Keiko search Mr. Donut's shop for clues and find something called Operation Payback Megamind. They come to the conclusion that Mr. Donut is truly evil until Mr. Donut's wife and kids step in and explain that it was simply a plan they had to thank Megamind for saving Mr. Donut's life, even though he's literally the reason Mr. Donut's life was in danger to begin with. At the same time, Mr. Donut then lures Megamind and Minion back to the hideout into a trap set by the Go Fish gang, trapping them in a net dangling over a pit of sharks. Megamind tries to remind Mr. Donut of who he truly is, but fails until Roxanne conveniently pops in, bringing Mr. Donut's wife and kids with her. His wife pleads with him, telling him how much of an amazing husband and father he is, which is hard to believe, given the fact that half the TV movie he seems pretty emotionally unavailable. It's just odd how everyone acts like he's always been such a happy-go-lucky donut maker when the TV movie emphasizes the fact that he hasn't been. Anyways, Mr. Donut's wife is able to get through to him and snap him back to reality. Mr. Donut then helps Megamind defeat the Go Fish gang and treats everyone to Megamind-shaped donuts that Megamind hallucinates are speaking to him and begging him to eat them. It's a whole lot of nothing. I hate this show. I hate this show so much. Just these first 2 episodes contribute nothing to Megamind and his story in the slightest. However, luckily, it does not get much worse than this, which isn't saying much, but it makes getting through the rest of this a little bit easier. Now for episode 3, Roach Hard with a Vengeance. I'm never saying that episode title ever again. This episode follows Keiko and Minion arguing over Keiko's more frequent presence in the lair. Keiko is messy, always leaving trash for Minion to clean up, and Keiko argues that the trash can isn't close enough for her to properly clean. Keiko's mess causes cockroaches to appear in the lab, and it's pre-established in the TV movie that Megamind has a deathly fear of cockroaches. In an effort to get away, Megamind locks himself in his panic room and tells Minion and Keiko to handle it. Minion and Keiko continue to argue, Keiko believing that Minion is jealous of her joining the team, and Minion insists that he's not. He's just better equipped at handling things than Keiko is. In an effort to prove Keiko wrong, while looking for roach repellent, he blindly grabs the intelligence spray, insisting that he's so good at organizing that he knows for sure it's the roach repellent. Keiko catches this and tries to tell him that he picked the wrong spray, but he ignores her, proceeding to spray one of the roaches. The roach, named Rochelle, springs up, suddenly able to speak and is bent on being evil. The way she kind of shoots up in this shot is kind of funny, not gonna lie. Rochelle then sneaks into Megamind's panic room, and his fear of roaches paralyzes him, causing him to be unable to get rid of her, even after she reveals evil plans to avenge the mistreatment of cockroaches. This is crazy to read. I don't even know what I'm saying. She uses roach Morse code to bring a horde of roaches to the lair and has them retrieve the intelligence spray from Minion and Keiko through a hive mind. As Minion and Keiko try to keep the spray from them, Rochelle uses the panic room control panel to access Minion's programming and controls his body to get the spray to the roaches, holding Keiko back to prevent her from stopping him. Desperate to stop her from controlling Minion, Megamind confesses to Rochelle why he's so scared of roaches. When he was in prison as a child, he fell asleep on a bag of old ham sandwiches, and when he woke up, his face was covered in roaches. Rochelle then explains that for generations, roaches have spoken of this incident as a miracle, dubbing Megamind as the legendary ham boy. I don't know what I just said, and I will not explain it further. Although I do love the art of little Megamind, it's so cute. And honestly, Megamind's so valid in this because nothing like that has ever happened to me, and I'd cry if a roach was in my line of sight. That's the most relatable this show ever gets for me. While Megamind is telling the story, Keiko has enough time to launch the intelligence spray at an override button, freeing Minion from Rochelle's control. However, this leaves the intelligence spray vulnerable and the roaches are able to get a hold of it. Rochelle then sprays all the roaches with it. Minion and Keiko somehow manage to reconcile in the midst of this, with Minion admitting that he was jealous and Keiko admitting that she admires him and felt that she constantly feels the need to prove herself as a member of the team. It's odd given she's a 12-year-old feeling the need to fit in with a bunch of 30-year-olds. But again, I digress. The newly formed roach army then retaliates, and Minion gets the idea to suck up all the roaches with a power vacuum. While trying to lure the roaches to the vacuum, Keiko is chased by a giant swarm, which honestly serves as a surprisingly cool-looking sequence given the show's quality so far. Minion successfully vacuums up all the roaches, and they are placed inside a rocket which Megamind sends to a trash planet in space. The episode ends with Minion giving Keiko her own designated space in the lair with its own trash can so she can't make any more messes. I don't have any thoughts on this episode other than the fact that I do kind of like Minion and Keiko's dynamic, but then I'm reminded by the fact that this is a 12-year-old while everyone else here is in their 30s. I'm 21, and the thought of being as close with a 12-year-old as these adults are is weird to me, and I don't think I'm gonna get over that for the rest of this show. A little bit of a lighting change because it's dark outside now, but let's get past that. Thankfully, episode 4, Mega Mayor, is the start of the stronger episodes of this series. It follows Roxanne, stressed about all of her mayoral duties when she's suddenly threatened by her old colleague, Lady Doppler. Side note, Lady Doppler's gloves are green screen green. They should not be showing up in this shot. Megamind enters Roxanne's office with new tech he invented, promising it can keep her safe. Without explaining, he activates it, the tech proceeding to turn Roxanne into Megamind and Megamind into Roxanne. Roxanne begins to panic, realizing she can't properly execute her mayoral duty while she looks like Megamind, and Megamind insists that he can handle being mayor on her behalf. When a citizen walks into the office, Roxanne hides and tries to coach Megamind through handling him through an earpiece, but Megamind fails miserably, doing nothing to reassure Roxanne of the situation. Roxanne's chief of staff, Christina Cristo, walks in and forces Roxanne out of the office thinking she's Megamind. This leaves Megamind to handle being mayor on his own. He is extremely confident of his abilities, promising to make sure Roxanne is the most loved mayor of all time. Speaking of Christina Cristo, she is a character that I haven't spoken of yet for no particular reason. She's appeared in the TV movie as well as a few episodes prior to this one. Her character so far has been her arguing and squabbling with Megamind because she believes that Megamind is not good for Roxanne's image as mayor. I actually think her design is really cute, and though there's not much to her, I like her. Like, I have no issues with her. She's kind of there, but doesn't hurt the show in any way. I'll mention her a bit more when we go into future episodes. After leaving the office, Roxanne attends a ceremony that Megamind had been scheduled to appear at to give Keiko a Citizen Heroism Award, whatever that is. While presenting that award, Roxanne struggles with trying to sound like Megamind, figuring out which words to mispronounce and failing miserably.
Metrocity is fortunate enough to have someone as brave as Keiko among its citizens, or citizens.
Keiko is immediately able to clock it and calls Roxanne out after the ceremony. Roxanne is desperate to get back to the mayor's office, but Keiko tries to convince her to attempt crime fighting as Megamind. She believes that since Roxanne is much more personable than Megamind is, she can use her to get better web content for Megamind's channel. After thinking about it, Roxanne decides it would be nice to show it's possible to fight crime without causing the city damage that she, as mayor, would have to deal with later. Minion comes to pick them up, unaware of the switch. There's also this song that Minion really likes, and he starts playing it. And it's like It's just Coco Melon music.
Makes me want to dance in my too tight pants. Turn it up.
Okay then. Can I get a waka waka woo up in here?
Waka waka woo.
I don't know. Minion says Megamind calls it the national anthem of throwing up, and he's honestly so real for that, because what was that? Meanwhile, as Roxanne, Megamind continuously says yes to every mayoral request he hears, thinking that being positive is the key to being a good mayor. Roxanne, as Megamind, on the other hand, is struggling to cause less damage, and soon both Megamind and Roxanne realize each other's jobs are not as easy as they once thought. Megamind's constant yeses as mayor has significantly caused problems with the city, most notably being the severe traffic jam and scheduling opposing rallies at the same time in the same place. As Megamind tries to calm down all the citizens by giving a mayoral speech, Lady Doppler arrives looking for Roxanne. Roxanne, as Megamind, attempts to stop her but fails, and Lady Doppler continues the search for Roxanne. The real Roxanne feels like giving up, noting that she just isn't made for crime fighting, and Keiko gives her a pep talk, convincing her to stop thinking like Megamind and to start thinking like herself to solve the problem. Roxanne, finally motivated, heads out to try again at stopping Lady Doppler. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it's confusing me trying to talk between which is Megamind and which is Roxanne. This is too much for me, dude. As Lady Doppler begins attacking Megamind, or as she thinks, Roxanne, Minion, Keiko, and Roxanne show up, trapping Lady Doppler in a giant snow globe in the oddest villain takedown I have ever seen. The group then celebrates their victory in a hug while Megamind and Roxanne switch their bodies back. Oh my god, guys. This is my favorite scene in this entire show. I've already talked about how much I love Mega Rocks, and this scene just speaks to my soul. After they all pull away from the hug, Megamind and Roxanne silently look at each other in admiration while music reminiscent of the Mega Rocks scenes from the original movie start playing. This is the good stuff, guys. Oh my gosh. This is so good. This is so good. It's so good. No words needed. Just seeing their expressions as they gaze at each other is everything we need to know. It's showing, not telling. Something this show struggles with heavily. But again, there's always a negative. The scene works really well on its own, but unfortunately, there's no build up to it. But on its own, it's just a really nice detail that I will never stop thinking about. I've said a lot about Megamind Rules as a show already, but episode 4 Mega Rocks ending scene, they could never make me hate you. Never. Speaking of Mega Rocks, let's get into episode 5, Extra Credit, which is the most blatant acknowledgement of the ship in this entire series. Is it good? I'll get to that later. The episode starts off with the gang playing a guessing game with a giant orb. If the player fails to guess in time, the orb will shock them. While Megamind and Roxanne play together, Megamind tries to get her to guess something with the hint that the object is something he dangled her over one of the many times he's kidnapped her. She lists numerous things as there's so many possibilities, and when she finally guesses, Keiko mentions how weird their relationship is. Megamind and Roxanne argue that their relationship is normal before coming to a realization that it really isn't. In the middle of their game, Keiko says that she has to leave to work on extra credit homework because her teacher, Mr. Schlorg Peterman, is really harsh at grading and she's failing his class. Roxanne immediately recognizes the name and excitedly explains that Schlorg Peterman was her best friend in summer camp. Christina, who's also there, is excited because she feels that Roxanne needs to be seen with normal people rather than what she refers to as weirdos, and Mr. Schlorg Peterman will be good for her image. Megamind, however, seems to be jealous, immediately insulting Schlorg Peterman. Roxanne then goes to Keiko's school to catch up with her old friend, and they immediately bond over their old camp memories. Megamind gets Keiko to take him to the school as well to meet Schlorg Peterman himself. He attempts to seem better than Schlorg Peterman, but fails immediately as he accidentally insults Roxanne in the process. Roxanne and Schlorg Peterman continue to bond, and Megamind returns to the lair with what he describes as a pain in his stomach. I know I said last episode was peak Mega Rocks, but this is it. As Keiko is working on her extra credit project with the materials Megamind provided to her, Megamind vents to her and Minion about his painful emotions. He describes it as
longing mixed with sadness, mixed with feelings of inadequacy.
And Keiko calls him out as being jealous.
I am not jealous! I'm sure my tummy has nothing to do with the fact that the goodest thing that ever happened to me has replaced me.
Megamind calling Roxanne the goodest thing that ever happened to him? I was screaming, I was crying, I was rolling on the floor, dying. It's so good. It's so good.
Just wondering, have you told Roxy you think she's the goodest? Which is adorable, by the way.
I love them so much. Yeah, this is obviously one of my other favorite scenes in this show. If you can't tell already, the only scenes I actually like in this show always have to do with Mega Rocks. But I feel like that's because it deals so heavily with emotions. Like I said before, the initial movie focused on characters' emotions and how those emotions push the narrative forward. This episode is somewhat a return to form in that regard, with Megamind's emotions spurring the conflict that we're about to get to. After Keiko's project is proven successful, she heads home for dinner and Megamind gets an idea to turn her project into a robot friend to make Roxanne jealous in return. The next day, Megamind interrupts Roxanne and Schlurk Peterman's hangout at Mr. Donuts to introduce his robot friend to them. He tells Roxanne that the robot is an old friend from camp that was a day camp that took place that day. And Roxanne immediately sees this act. Megamind, however, doesn't take a hint and takes things too far, starting a food fight within the restaurant and scaring Schlurk Peterman off. On the other hand, Keiko returns to the lair and is in shock at the fact that her robot project is missing. She opens her phone to see footage of her robot at the food fight and heads over. Before she gets there, Megamind notices Roxanne's annoyance and gets the pain in his stomach again, immediately halting the food fight. Keiko barges in and yells at Megamind for stealing her robot. He reluctantly agrees to return the project to Keiko, but the robot gets angry at the thought of Megamind abandoning it and goes rogue, searching for a new Megamind to replace him. The robot starts terrorizing the city, throwing around things that it doesn't recognize as Megamind. Keiko argues that this wouldn't have been an issue if Megamind and Roxanne clearly defined their relationship, and they both yell at her that it's complicated.
All of this could have been avoided if you both just clearly defined your relationship.
It's complicated, Keiko!
Every time they say it's complicated, I want to roll my eyes, because I did say towards the beginning that it makes sense that they're not together. But then the more that they do this, the more annoying it gets. And then the more obvious it gets that they're trying to avoid actually writing romance. And that makes me upset. But you know what? I'm gonna smile through it. The gang come up with a plan for Megamind to pretend to be the robot's friend again so it'll calm down and leave civilians alone. When the robot finally is calmed down and is hanging out with Megamind, Megamind tries to lure it to the car to take it back to the lair, but the robot immediately understands what's going on and then kidnaps Megamind and takes him up the side of a building. While trying to figure out what to do, Megamind remembers he added a special space alloy to the robot that Minion's body is also made out of. The entire episode, Minion had been using the electric shock orb from their guessing game to calm his circuits, which doesn't make sense because Minion's not a robot. He's a fish controlling a robot, but whatever. Megamind realizes he can use the orb to calm the robot down, and he calls down to the others to throw over the orb. Minion, addicted to using the orb, refuses to hand it over to Roxanne until he finally relents and passes it to her. Roxanne throws it with perfect aim and the robot catches it, getting shocked in the process. The robot is instantly calm and begins to fall, taking Megamind with it. His D-gun falls to the ground and Roxanne takes it, using the decelerate feature to slow Megamind's fall. Now, after finally getting the robot back, the gang is able to take it back to Keiko's school and she gets full credit on her assignment. Roxanne mentions that she's about to go back out with Schlurk Peterman, and Megamind, finally over his jealousy, says he's okay with it. While the rest of them go back to the lair to continue to play games, and why a 12-year-old is hanging out at an adult's house past sunset is a question we will never get answered. Roxanne joins them later, saying she only really had camp memories in common with Schlurk Peterman, and she enjoys making new memories here with them. A disappointing resolution, to say the least. I like this episode more than others because it's more of an emotionally driven plot, but it doesn't fully tap into that. The emotional aspects kind of disappear once the robot goes rogue. We don't get to see how Roxanne really feels at all, and Megamind gets over emotions he's never really felt before, almost instantly. I think that boils down the biggest issue I have with this show. The characters' emotions themselves are not seen as important. Everything that happens to them is. It just makes them feel flat and like nothing compared to the original movie. Now on to episode 6, Too Much Chum, or in our case, because I refuse to call him that name, Too Much Minion. The episode starts off with Megamind fighting the Doom Syndicate to retrieve isotopes they're trying to steal late into the night, to the point where he barely gets any sleep at all. When Roxanne and Christina stop by the lair in the morning for a hero report, Megamind admits he lost the isotopes, but is clearly too exhausted to properly function. Roxanne and Keiko both try to convince him to get rest, but he refuses. Minion insists that he will take care of things and make sure that Megamind is back to his usual self. Roxanne has a bunch of meetings to attend and Keiko has school, so they both leave Minion to take care of Megamind alone. After Keiko leaves, Minion notices there's tickets for sale for an Itty concert, the lead singer of Megamind's favorite band. He decides getting him tickets to the show is the best way to help him relax. However, he has to step out immediately to go get the tickets, meaning if he leaves, no one will be there to take care of Megamind. As a solution, he decides to use the cloning machine to make a copy of himself to make sure that Megamind is taken care of while he's getting the tickets. After making a new minion, he then leaves minion number 2 at the lair while he goes out. When he gets to the ticket booth, he's quickly told that the last 2 remaining tickets are not a guaranteed sale, but going to be distributed by a lottery system, so he has to wait for the winner to be announced. As he waits, he runs into Christina, who says Roxanne sent her to get tickets for her and Megamind. Which the thought of Roxanne trying to get tickets for her and Megamind to go to a concert together is so cute, and I'm like, I love it. I love it so much. See, I have positives. I am not always negative when it comes to this show. Minion and Christina get into an argument, claiming that one of them is a better assistant than the other, and whoever gets to win the tickets proves it. Meanwhile, minion number 2 back at the lair feels as if he's not properly helping Megamind out, so he creates another minion, altering the personality to suit Megamind's needs. When minion number 3 doesn't help, he creates another minion, and you can tell where this is going. Megamind finally notices there's 4 minions in the lair, but his sleep-deprived state causes him to believe that he's in a dream. Back at the ticket booth, Christina and Minion have an assistant off, doing tasks for random people in the ticket booth line. I don't know what's going on at this point. This show is very odd. At the lair, Keiko gets back from school and shocked to find 4 different minions. Megamind insists that it's all just a dream, despite Keiko trying to convince him that it's not. Ignoring her, Megamind declares he's going to go fight the Doom Syndicate with his dream powers. Keiko turns to the other minions, immediately guessing correctly what's going on with the clones, and she tries to keep him inside the lair so she can stop Megamind from crime fighting in his condition. Unfortunately, she's only able to lock 3 of the minions in the lair, while the minion with the amplified Happy personality is outside with her and Megamind. Happy Minion brings over the invisible car, now covered in pink glitter, and they all go downtown where Behemoth is terrorizing the city. Keiko tries again to convince Megamind to stop. Megamind dismisses her, and why is this 30-year-old man touching this child's face? He needs to stop. They finally run into Behemoth, and since the car is now bright pink, he immediately spots them and tries to destroy the car. The minions left at the lair are desperate to get out there and help Megamind, so they all get inside the cloning machine and join together to make one big minion. Giant Minion arrives to the fight with Behemoth, not helping Megamind's delusions of this being a dream. Giant Minion gives Megamind his binky to help him relax, and he falls asleep in the middle of the street. Somehow, that is a surprisingly important detail. Take note of that. Giant Minion and Behemoth battle, and when Giant Minion wins, the people of the city give credit to Megamind. Sleep-deprived Megamind takes the credit happily, but then the citizens start blaming him for the street damage the battle caused. As a reaction, Megamind says,
"Even in my dream, when I win, I lose. This city will be the death of me," before passing out again. Giant Minion takes that declaration literally, and in order to protect Megamind from the city killing him, he feels like he has to destroy the city. Back at the ticket booth, it's announced that the original Minion has won the ticket lottery and claims his title as best assistant. While he's gloating to Christina, Giant Minion passes by and he realizes he needs to help Megamind. He gives the tickets to Christina and rushes over to Megamind and Keiko's side. Megamind wakes up and Minion explains that this isn't a dream, and Megamind finally believes it. They all try to come up with a plan, and Minion realizes that instructional music is the key to stopping Giant Minion. This is something that's been a theme throughout the episode, with Minion's favorite Iggy song being instructional music that he can't help but follow every time he hears it. They get in the invisible car and drive around the city with the megaphone, Minion singing an instructional song guiding Giant Minion and Happy Minion into the ocean, never to be seen again. They just exist in the ocean now forever. Like, from this point on, they're just out there somewhere doing whatever, I guess, now. At the end of the episode, we see Lady Doppler and Pierre Pressure at the lair on the phone with Machiavellian. They explain to him that Behemoth's attack was just a distraction so they could get into Megamind's lair, and they managed to steal back Machiavellian's old hairbrush, but they weren't able to find Megamind's binky. Machiavellian says that they need a new plan because Megamind's binky is the most important thing they need for his plan. Then he reveals that he believes Keiko is the perfect way to get the binky. I told y'all, Minion giving Megamind his binky in the middle of the street was going to be important somehow. I'm so sick of this show, and I really want this to be over at this point, but I'm gonna keep pushing through.
The penultimate episode 7 is called A Cake for Keiko. And this is where the lore gets so wildly messed up, I have to force myself not to get upset covering this. We start off with Megamind and Keiko filming another video for his web channel when Minion notices that Machiavellin's hairbrush is missing. Megamind freaks out and Keiko asks who Machiavellin even is. Megamind explains that Machiavellin is his old teacher from villain school. What the hell is villain school? Genuinely. The first movie establishes that Megamind and Metro Man are the only two people on Earth that are like them, that are hero and villain. Megamind didn't go to a special school. He went to normal school for a brief amount of time and then was in prison. Sure, you can argue that we don't get a lot of detail about Megamind's life after he left school, but I'm sorry, it's just a stupid way of interpreting it. You genuinely have to bend over backwards to try to make any of that make sense. There's so many more logical ways that you can implement this, and they didn't take it. Again, I told myself I wasn't gonna get angry, so let's move on. Megamind says that Machiavellin was the worst villain of them all, and that he even taught Megamind the importance of presentation. The only way Megamind became the world's greatest villain was because he was able to defeat Machiavellin. Whatever. Roxanne interrupts Megamind to gift Keiko a drone as it's Keiko's birthday. Also, I'd like to mention how I hate that Keiko calls Roxanne Roxy.
Oh, so cool, Roxy. Thank you so much.
I don't know, having a little kid you barely know address you as a nickname reserved for your close friends, especially when you're the mayor and she's a middle schooler, is just, it doesn't seem right. I really just hate how the dynamics with Keiko are written. Megamind is embarrassed as he clearly forgot about her birthday and pretends he has a big surprise for her. Keiko doesn't buy it and says that the only gift she wants from him is for him to train her to be a hero like he promised. Megamind claims he never promised, but Keiko pulls out a recording she took in the TV movie of Megamind promising to train her. He quickly comes up with an excuse and forces her out of the lair, claiming he's still working on her birthday surprise and that she can come back later to see it. Roxanne yells at him for being so harsh to Keiko, and Megamind explains that he had to get her to leave so he can prepare her surprise, a big cake. Roxanne, knowing he just came up with that on the spot, calls him out for being terrible at any form of cooking or baking, and Megamind claims it'll be a piece of cake. Outside of the lair, Keiko decides she's gonna have to prove to Megamind that she's worthy of getting superhero training. She reveals she stole Megamind's disguise generator watch and plans to use it to infiltrate the Doom Syndicate as Lord Nighty Night since Megamind had just put him in jail. She's able to track down the Doom Syndicate's lair to some office building. I feel like I need to prepare y'all for how stupid the Doom Syndicate is here. If you thought that they were dumb and incompetent before, you haven't seen anything. Like, you'd think they're dumb already for the sake of plot convenience. But it's worse here. It's so much worse. Also, for some reason, the ex-mayor is here being tormented by the Doom Syndicate. It's barely clarified why he's here in the first place. We just have to accept it, I guess. And there's also the fact that he's the only civilian there. I don't know what that's about. I really don't. Keiko, as Lord Nighty Night, walks in, and the Doom Syndicate questions why she didn't bring sandwiches. Apparently, it's their own custom to bring back sandwiches for the whole team whenever they return from jail, or else they're forced to do chores for the team. Given she has no sandwiches, they make Keiko get to work. As Keiko is helping Behemoth print out his favorite comic strip, the ex-mayor expresses his annoyance since the printer is all queued up. Behemoth yells at him, and oh my god, why is the mayor crawling on the floor like that? What is going on right now? While Behemoth is distracted, Keiko reveals to the ex-mayor her true identity and asks him to help her out with defeating the Doom Syndicate. He introduces himself as Jody Smelt, and the two of them come to an alliance. He also mentions to Keiko that he likes to make blown glass figurines. There's so many random details in this show that are going to be important later. Like, for example, you need to know that the mayor, Jody Smelt, makes glass figures. And also, I never thought we'd get a mayor name reveal. Like, it's so pointless. But we got it, I guess. That's the groundbreaking Megamind lore. Mayor's name is Jody Smelt, guys. Let's put that in the wiki. Put it in now. Okay, here's when it gets ridiculous. The Doom Syndicate then calls for Nighty Night and Keiko transforms back into her disguise. When she catches up with them, the whole team is celebrating because apparently she's the only one of them that knows how to type and use a computer. I'm not joking. These grown adults, including a former weather reporter who must have gone to college, don't know how to type and use a computer. computer. This is such a big deal to them that when the real Lord Nighty Night returns with sandwiches, they pick the Nighty Night who can type over the one who's obviously the real one. I don't even know what to say at this point anymore. Like, I'm aware the original movie has some absurd and plot conveniency moments, but at least they're grounded in some sort of reality so that you still follow along and don't question it. Anyways, Machiavellian shows up and is able to call out Keiko by recognizing the watch she's wearing, and Keiko transforms back in front of the villains. At the lair, Megamind reveals to Minion and Roxanne a beautiful cake he's created after his many terrible attempts, and the two are in awe. They try to get a closer look, but Megamind pushes them away and Roxanne realizes something's up. She pushes past Megamind to see the cake is just a cardboard cutout. Megamind finally admits that he's struggling, and Roxanne offers to help him make one. He instantly reminds her of the muffins she made in the TV movie and how terrible they were, but Roxanne insists that she's improved her baking skills. Megamind still refuses, explaining how he hates being taught because of the way Machiavellian taught him. We then go back to the Doom Syndicate where Machiavellian is interrogating Keiko. As a cover-up, Keiko claims that she left Megamind because he refused to mentor her, and she came here because she felt like villainy would be a better option. Machiavellian tells her that she would have to prove her loyalty before that by having her retrieve Megamind's binky. I'm just confused. In the prior episode, we have Machiavellian state that he plans on using Keiko as a part of his plan to get the binky. However, he couldn't have predicted that Keiko was going to try to infiltrate the Doom Syndicate. They never really go into what Machiavellian's initial plan would have been had Keiko not come to them. And it's clear that the writers did not really think that through. I noticed it my second watch and I was just like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Anyways, Keiko agrees, believing it's no big deal since it's just a binky. We're switching back and forth a lot here, I know, just bear with me. But back at the lair, Megamind and Roxanne taste test Megamind's latest cake attempt, but it results in both of them falling to the ground with full body paralysis. Megamind then finally agrees to let Roxanne help them once they're able to get up again. While they're unable to move, Keiko sneaks into the lair to get the binky. Once she has it, she realizes that there's actually some kind of power within it and she can't just give it away to Machiavellian. Also, why is she specifically holding the part that Megamind puts in his mouth? Keiko then remembers Jody told her about his glassblowing hobby and asks him to make a replica of the binky. He agrees, wanting nothing but to stop the Doom Syndicate. Back in the kitchen, Megamind and Roxanne remain paralyzed on the floor. Roxanne asks Megamind why he's so insistent on not training Keiko, and when he refuses to tell, she begins to tickle him. I have no words. I really wish the scene was a joke, but it's not. When I said I accepted Megarock's content even when it's bad, this is the one exception. I do not accept this. Again, these are adults in their 30s tickling each other on the floor. Anyways, trying to forget that, Roxanne gets Megamind to admit that he doesn't want to put Keiko through what he went through as a student, and that he didn't want her to have to defeat him to prove her mastery like with what he had to do with Machiavellian. I really hate this because I feel like if they really wanted Megamind to have trauma with teaching, the Titan situation is right there. The rest of this just seems forced, especially because we actually see what he went through with Titan, but we haven't seen anything to do with Machiavellian. Roxanne promises Megamind if she teaches him, he won't have to defeat her, and Megamind accepts. She then gets up, admitting she never ate his cake and was only pretending to be paralyzed to get information out of him. I don't know why she did that when she could have just been normal and done the same tactic to get information out, but I don't know. Back at the office, Jody reveals the replica of Megamind's binky, marked with a red lightning bolt so Keiko can tell the difference. The original is placed in her backpack and she runs off to go give the fake to Machiavellian. Machiavellian is instantly able to tell the power of the binkies within the room as Keiko enters, and he takes the fake from her. He gives her the seat of dishonor at the table and explains how the binky is the final thing he needs to restore his body. When Keiko isn't looking, he digs in her backpack and switches the binky. I will say this, is that moment is extremely subtle. If you're not paying attention, you do not notice him switching the binky at all, but it's there. The few moments where they put thought into what's actually going on screen where you have to pay attention. This does not really happen in this show. This is a very rare moment. The Doom Syndicate then explains that throughout the episodes, they've been collecting the components for this machine. The snow globe they used to defeat Lady Doppler in the Mega Mayor episode was used as a vessel for the machine. The starfish Nighty Night acquired during the Dude Monkey episode has regeneration abilities needed to bring back Machiavellian's body. The isotopes Megamind lost in the Too Much Minion episode would be used to power the machine, and the hairbrush stolen in that same episode has Machiavellian's DNA on it. Unknowing that the binkies were switched, Keiko proceeds to gloat that she gave Machiavellian a fake and that she has the real one. Why would you do that, girl? She runs away, with the Doom Syndicate chasing her, and because they're literally stupid, she's able to get away. Once she's safe, Keiko pulls out the binky and realizes with horror that it's the fake and that Machiavellian has the real one. She returns to the lair to tell Megamind what she's done, but she's interrupted by a birthday surprise that Megamind, Roxanne, and Minion created for her. She tells them they didn't need to do all of this, feeling guilty for her actions, but they insist she cut the cake. When she does, she finds a surprise inside. A superhero suit made just for her, and it's ugly. I hope she never wears this, I really do. It does not look good. Anyways, Keiko comes up with an excuse to go home, saying her mom has something there for her, no longer having the heart to tell Megamind anything. She gives the suit back and runs off, thanking them but telling them that she doesn't deserve them. All the while, the Doom Syndicate puts together the final components of the machine and are able to successfully give Machiavellian his body back. While we don't fully get to see his design just yet in this episode, we see his silhouette and it's bad. But trust me guys, the real design is even worse. Finally, we are finally at the last episode. I cannot wait to be freed from this hell. Nobody deserves to have watched the show as much as I have. I've had to consistently go back and rewatch the original movie to remind myself that this is supposed to be good. To give myself the motivation and the will to remind myself why I love Megamind and why making this video is important to me. Hopefully, this will all feel worth it in the end. The title of the finale is Who Wants to Save a City? The start picks up right where the last episode left off, and we finally see Machiavellian's design.
The key to supervillainy is presentation.
He is dreadfully ugly, with the most terrible outfit, weird face sculpt, and just oddly proportioned body out of all the characters in this show. I hate looking at him more than Dude Monkey. It's that bad. We then go to Megamind's lair to see that today in Metro City is a comet viewing that Megamind is scheduled to be a part of. While Minion and Keiko are gathered to watch on TV, Keiko admits to Minion that she gave away Megamind's binky and Minion freaks out. Keiko tries to calm him down and has him promise to let her tell Megamind on her own terms. Megamind walks out and they tell him that he's running late to the ceremony, but before he can head over, Machiavellian hacks Megamind's TV. The two of them have this back and forth banter that's clearly meant to be reminiscent of the banter he has with Metro Man at the beginning of the first movie, but it doesn't hit the same in the slightest.
Yes, I can't tell you how disappointed I was to hear that you're now batting for the losing team.
Justice might lose a game here and there, but we make up for it in the off-season.
The off-season is for exhibition games, but this is the finals, and I'm heavily favored to win.
Metals can be melted by the heat of revenge.
It's revenge, and it's best served cold.
But it can be easily reheated in the microwave of evil.
Well, I think your warranty is about to expire.
Maybe I got an extended warranty.
Warranties are invalid if you don't use the product for its intended purpose.
Machiavellian then forces Megamind to play along with the game where he has to save multiple spots in Metro City from being destroyed. If he successfully does so, Machiavellian will retreat, but if he doesn't, the city will be destroyed. The first challenge leads him to the observatory that's supposed to be abandoned. The last time we see the observatory, Megamind literally blew it up. Why is it all of a sudden operational again? They made it a point in the first episode of the show that the aquarium that was destroyed in the TV movie had a grand reopening. The aquarium damage is nothing compared to an observatory shown to have been abandoned for years getting blown up. At the very least, they could have had in a previous episode that the observatory is back, which, given the fact that it was gone for so long and that this show doesn't seem to take place within more than a month, it doesn't make sense that the observatory came back so quickly. Whatever, I'm going on a tangent and I care way too much about Megamind lore. When Megamind, Keiko, and Minion arrive at the observatory, they're met by peer pressure and Megamind defeats them, but at the cost of destroying the observatory and the comet feed that all of Metro City is watching. The next Machiavellian challenge is at the power station where they're met with Lady Doppler and they manage to defeat her, but destroy the power grid in the process, cutting off all power in the city. The final challenge, Machiavellian breaks into the lair and takes control of the brain bots, causing them to wreak havoc across the city. As a solution, Megamind uses his remote that controls his death ray to destroy the brain bot transmitter, but when he activates it, Machiavellian reveals that he reprogrammed the ray to hit the comet and redirect it towards Metro City.
I accidentally left the gamma chamber on while heating a burrito. I came back from an errand to find Machiavellian's entire fortress burned to ashes.
In a panic, Megamind rushes to City Hall to use his D-gun on the comet, but when it doesn't work, he accepts he can't do anything about it. He turns to Roxanne, telling her there's something that he regrets never telling her, which is clearly about to be a love confession, when Machiavellian interrupts.
You are...
Fear not, citizen! Machiavellian is here!
Thanks for that. He literally introduces himself as Machiavellian, but then proceeds to declare himself as a hero, equipping Megamind's binky and using its power to fly up and pick up the Megamind statue at the museum to throw at the comet. This successfully destroys the comet and the entire city celebrates, Megamind fleeing the scene before Roxanne could say anything to him. Keiko and Minion go out to find him and spot him in an alleyway gazing upon the crumbling head of his statue Machiavellian just destroyed. They ask him what he's doing and he says he's admiring the symbolism, which is shocking because the script would make me think that the writers have no clue what that is. Keiko then apologizes, saying this is her fault, and confesses that she gave Machiavellian the binky. Megamind asks why, way too calmly for the given situation, and Keiko explains the events of the prior episode. But Megamind reassures her that he's happy to have her and that he's always had a soft spot for trouble. He then gives her a hug, and this would be a heartfelt moment, but the writing of the show just isn't good enough to allow that. It just ends up feeling unearned. Keiko then gets a phone alert that a press conference has started, and she, Megamind, and Minion gather around to watch. At the conference, Machiavellian shows footage of each task he gave Megamind, explaining that Megamind has returned to villainy and deliberately destroyed the observatory to stop any early warning signs of the comet changing course, then destroyed the power grid to disable emergency response, and then unleashes brain bots upon the city. Roxanne then takes the podium, stating that even though she doubts these claims, she has no other choice but to declare Megamind as public enemy #1. I know, but trust me, it gets better. As Minion and Keiko panic, Megamind reassures them that they have one more card left to play. Now let's take a second to think about what this could possibly be. What card could Megamind possibly play right now? I'll give you a moment. Okay, Megamind turns around, shoves his phone in Minion and Keiko's faces and says, "We have to find
Metro Man."
And we're done! We're done. That's it. Seriously, that's it. The show ends on a cliffhanger. We have to find Metro Man. That's how it ends. That's the final line of the show. This entire show. 8 episodes leading up to that. Even though within the first movie, when Megamind and Roxanne go to Metro Man to ask for help, and he refuses for a threat that's much bigger than this, Megamind still thinks he has to go back and ask Metro Man for help. Even if Machiavellian is somehow a bigger threat than Titan, we don't see that. We're not made aware of that in the slightest. Show, don't tell. Don't tell us Machiavellian is the worst villain of them all. I want to see that. We've seen Titan in action. We've seen what he's done. He's capable of terrifying stuff. What's Machiavellian done? Look ugly? He's assaulting my eyes. That's what he's doing. That's the most dangerous thing he's ever done. At this point, I have seen every single episode of the show 4 or 5 times, and I'm in pain. I'm in physical pain from the stress of all this. I'm so excited to be done. Truly, I'm so done. But before we end this, I'd like to talk about my final thoughts. I believe the show is bad, not just because of the bad animation or the lack of cinematic shots or cinematic lighting or the bad character design. It's because the way the characters are treated. There's a lack of understanding of who these characters are and what the initial movie stood for. Because of this, Megamind is a shell of himself here. He's almost completely out of character. In reality, he's completely smart and capable of holding his own, and his lack of understanding things like social interaction and pronunciation of words stemmed from the fact that he was sheltered and raised in prison. He never got a proper education because he was shunned from his school, but he was smart enough to learn everything else on his own. His relationship with Minion is also completely undermined. Megamind still treats Minion like dirt here, even though in the initial movie, he admits that he does so and apologizes to Minion for that.
My best friend, Minion, I treated like dirt. Please don't make this city. Don't make Roxanne pay for my wrongdoings.
Megamind never struggled to compliment Minion in the original. Even when there was times that Megamind would disrespect Minion in some sort of way, he would always pay Minion his dues. He literally calls Minion, "You fantastic fish, you," on multiple occasions.
Certainly do, you fantastic fish, you.
Oh, Minion, you fantastic fish, you.
But in the show, he is so hesitant to say anything nice about Minion.
You didn't by chance forget about someone who, I don't know, say gallantly fought by your side?
Oh, of course. How could I possibly forgotten? Chum, my friend.
Yes, sir?
Big Sprainbot 227.
The relationship is just a lot more empty here, especially when Megamind promotes Minion to his sidekick. He feels more like an assistant than he did in the original movie. Also, Minion's personality is just different. In the original movie, he's shown to be more logical than Megamind on multiple occasions. Yet in this show, he's overly naive. Sure, he was never smarter than Megamind as a whole, but he was capable of understanding things that Megamind didn't. We don't get that in the show, as he's often treated as dumber than Megamind and not really an occasional voice of reason like he is in the movie. Like, for example, I don't fully believe he would clone himself the way he did. He's a lot more logical than that. Roxanne is fine and is honestly one of the better parts of this show, but I also feel like she's not taken seriously as a character. She's mostly just the straight man to Megamind's antics. Her emotions are never really considered unless she's upset or annoyed, because that typically moves the plot along. I just feel like she's treated more as a plot device rather than a character, and it makes me sad because I really love her. And then there's Keiko. Like I said at the start, I really enjoyed the potential of her dynamic with the team, but it's just executed terribly. Like I've stressed the many times in this video, she's a 12-year-old hanging out with 30-year-olds. She just met them randomly, joined in on their group almost instantly, and is hanging out with them constantly, with minimal mention of her mother. Like, yes, it's important to mention that her mom lets her hang out with them, but it just doesn't work, especially at the level she's interacting with these adults. It's not appropriate at all. I can see the vision of the kind of dynamic they wanted to build up with Keiko, but the execution of it, they took too many shortcuts to get to that spot to the point where it just feels unearned. Keiko needed a lot more development to be able to get to the point she was at the end, where she and Megamind shared that hug. She needed so much more than that. Maybe then would that moment hit a little bit harder. Now, let's get to Villain and the Doom Syndicate. None of this made sense at all, and it's clear they just forced them in here with no care. There is a time and a place for generic kids villains, and Megamind just isn't it. I understand that Megamind is seen as a kids movie, but the way the characters are treated do not fit the type of character that they made the Doom Syndicate and Villain out to be. Why do we know about all the characters' motives, from House Stewart to Metro Man, but we don't know why peer pressure is a mime that talks? These newer characters are not written to the same quality to the characters that we originally know. It's very jarring and the contrast is very visible. The initial movie is such a well-crafted emotional journey that respects and cares for its characters, while this show is just gag after gag with plot shoved in underneath. I really didn't want to hate this show. I waited 14 years for something like this, and I jumped at the opportunity of getting it. It just hurts that this is what it was. Now, I know DreamWorks tends to ignore their animated shows that tie in with their movies whenever they get to a new movie. Like, for example, the Trolls movies. Trolls 3 Band Together does not acknowledge Trollstopia at all. And I hope that will be the case with Megamind, because it truly deserves a proper sequel made with as much care and love as the original movie. I've seen people make theories about this show being like an in-universe biopic about Megamind's life, and I do love that. I love the idea of Megamind watching this and being absolutely furious by the way they portrayed him and the people in his life. That's something I'd love to see be incorporated into an actual theatrical released sequel. Okay, if this video does well, let's say if it gets 50 likes or something, I don't know, I will rewrite this series start to finish. From the TV movie to the very last episode, I will rewrite everything. I already have so many ideas of how I can fix what the show gave us, and I've kind of already started with my own redesign of Keiko, and my roommate did a little redesign of Dude Monkey. I really hope I'm able to do this because this is a franchise I'm very passionate about, and I just want to do right by it. I hope I was able to do it justice with this video. I just want to contribute something to something that I love so much. I love you, Megamind. I really do. I'm probably gonna rewatch it like 5 more times after filming this and making this video. Thank you for listening to my excuse to talk about Megamind for however long this is. And maybe I'll see you in a future video. I really don't know how this is gonna go. So, goodbye.
I was gonna play with the wine. You can call me Whitney. I know that your name. This is the baddest in school. The baddest in the game. Excuse me, honey, but nobody's in my lane. You was in New York, you was fucking a Yankee. I was fucking with Bass, I was actually friendly. These bitches so cranky. Give them a hanky. With my alcohol, give me my blankie.
I appreciate the applause, but I also really need you to like and subscribe.